joins us now. Thanks for taking the time to speak with us, Minister.
It's good to be on your show.
All right, Minister, let's start with the number that everyone's going to be talking about, $343 billion deficit. I mean, Canadians, we get the sense, have been on side with the spending so far, but a number that big, do you start to lose the support of the public for further spending?
Well, Greg, I think what's really important here is we took the decision in the course of this pandemic that we needed to support Canadians. We looked at the challenge that we were facing, an unprecedented challenge, like other countries in the world, and we came to the conclusion, and I am sure it's the correct conclusion, that it is more appropriate for the federal government to take on this debt than to have this debt be on households or on corporations. We need to find a way to get ourselves through this challenge. All of the decisions we've taken have been related to actually COVID-19 and are time limited. We think that's the right approach, and we know that Canadians needed to be supported and continue to need support during this challenging time.
Now, Minister, now that we have this picture of what the cost has been so far, a lot of people I'm talking to, I don't know if you just heard the tail end of the conversation with the Parliamentary Budget Officer, Yves Giroux, earlier last week with Perrin Beatty of the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. They were hoping to see something more in this. They were hoping to see a path out. I mean, how do we get out of this situation, these deficits, this debt we're accumulating?
I think we need to be very clear with Canadians. We are not out of this pandemic. We are still in a very challenging time. We are looking to a safe restart, and that's going to require all of us working together. We've done a good job as a country in finding a way to reduce the number of cases, but our economic success will follow those results. So we need to work towards a safe restart, and then yes, we do need to transition and get to a recovery, but it will be very contingent on our success in working together. What you did see in our update today, you got a sense of our willingness and our need to continue supporting people in a way that gets us to a safe restart. So we've provisioned for the wage subsidy, for the expansion that we've announced, and we'll have more details on that in the very near term. Importantly, what we see is the support for businesses that will allow them to get more people to work, to help our economy to get back up and going, and that, we think, is the path towards recovery that we need.
Now, the ink is barely dry on this update, but when can we expect some sort of plan for you? Are you thinking maybe at the end of summer, early fall, where we start to chart a course?
Well, we've been clear in this publication today that we intend on coming back to Canadians with more information on our economy in the fall. And we will be working in the summer to see what form that will take, but obviously we want to try and have the greatest amount of transparency possible. We need Canadians to see that we are going to continue supporting them in a way that will allow us to transition and get back to work. Our support has to be appropriate for the time that we're in. We just look at the last few months and know that the only decision we could make faced with this challenge was the decision to support Canadians. We need to get through this. We're going to find ourselves with a better economy, with more jobs at the end of this because of the kind of support we made during the course of this pandemic.
Now, the Prime Minister spoke earlier today, and he clearly talked about this as not being a time for austerity. You want to continue to support Canadians. I take a look at the CERB cost, though, a total cost of more than $80 billion. Originally, this benefit was supposed to cost Canadians maybe $35 billion at most. Is $80 billion the cap here, or do we need to keep expanding this program?
We've actually come out and said that the CERB will be extended till the end of the summer. What our intent is to have the wage subsidy and the employment insurance system and that CERB work together. So we expect that the CERB will decline in its impact because we're going to hopefully move into a safe restart. The employment insurance system will get back to a state of normalcy. And importantly, although we've had a very big take-up with the wage subsidy, we think that there's the opportunity for even more businesses to use it as they get back to work. So it'll allow them to get people back on their payrolls, to get back to work, and we're going to take away some of the disincentives in that program. So we see that increasing. the CERB decreasing, and the employment insurance system getting back to a more normalized state. And all of this is contingent on us working together, on us continuing the success we've had as a country in dealing with the health crisis. We've seen what happens when reopenings are rushed or not done properly around the world, and we don't want to have that happen in Canada. So we intend on working together carefully to get to a safe situation that will allow us to get our economy back up and running.
You've put a lot of programs out the door since the pandemic began. I think about the LEAF program, the financing for large employers. Jack Mintz was on the program earlier. He said he talked to 2 companies who took a look at it, desperately needed some help, and said, these conditions, why would anybody avail themselves of this? Did you make the conditions there a little too strict to be of any use?
Well, that's a completely wrong way to look at it. The LEAF program, the Large Enterprise Emergency Financing, is exactly that. It's emergency financing. What we're trying to do is to make sure that we have financing for large enterprises that don't have another source of capital. So if a company comes to the government and says that that program is too expensive or too onerous for them, and they're going to go out to the private sector and they're going to find loans from their banks, or they're going to go out into public markets, and they can do that, then that is exactly the way it should be working. This is intended to bridge companies that cannot get financing through this time, and it was very much designed with the intent that it would allow for capital markets to function and do what they should normally do. So I'm actually encouraged that that he says things like that, because we want firms that need it. We've had a couple dozen firms look at this. There are some that are going through the process, but if more of them are able to go and find sources of capital themselves, then that's all the better, and that means they're finding a way to get through this challenging time themselves.
With some companies going through the process, do you think there will be uptake at some point?
The process takes time. I'm not at a stage where I know exactly how those discussions will go, but it was put there for a purpose. I mean, we've put in place financing for businesses from the smallest to the largest. You can see that in the smallest enterprises, they absolutely needed that. So we've had 688,000 loans to the smallest of businesses for $40,000 each. That is working exactly the way it intended to keep people in business while they're going through this challenging time. At the large end, it takes a little longer. These are larger, more sophisticated firms that need to work through their current credit relationships. So I can't predict exactly where that will go. And in between, we will see firms, as they need capital, going to the banking system, in many cases supported with credit guarantees or loan guarantees from the federal government. So we've got a broad range of supports, Greg. We think that it's operating as it should. And of course, we are always, as we've done with all these programs, looking to make sure they continue to deliver the desired outcome. And so far, I can say with the financing programs, it seems to be working as we intended.
Before we let you go, Minister, the airline industry obviously hard hit. Your approach has been to try to help everyone. Kaylin Rovanescu of Air Canada basically said either we need some direct aid tailored to us or we need to see some travel restrictions lifted. When can they expect some help?
I think, I'll say, Greg, that we are seeing businesses across the country hit differently, and the airline industry clearly one that's been hit in a very challenging way, but there's others as well, the hotel industry, the hospitality industry more broadly. I would say that when you think about what's happened for the airline industry, yes, they've got severe restrictions, which we understand. They've gotten significant support that's gone directly through them through the wage subsidy. Of course, we have these financing vehicles in place which they can avail themselves of if it's appropriate for their circumstance. And we'll continue to think about how we can make sure that the hardest hit of firms are supported in a way that makes sense to give them a bridge through this. So, I hear the challenges, we understand them. What we won't be doing, though, is responding with changing our approach, which we think will protect our health in any way that's inappropriate. Clearly, we have a real challenge south of the border right now, and we don't believe that changing the travel restrictions in a way that creates additional risk would be prudent at this time.
Minister, as always, thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
That was Finance Minister Bill Morneau. We're going to hand things off to